All right, let's dive right in. Today we're talking about a really smart way to expand your business, specifically into the Malaysian market. And that's by using a strategic tool that can make or break your entry, the joint venture. So here's our game plan. We'll kick things off by looking at the real-world challenges in Malaysia. Then, we'll get clear on what a joint venture actually is and the different ways you can set one up. After that, we're getting into the nitty-gritty, the agreement itself, the local rules you absolutely have to follow, and, this is crucial, how to plan your way out before you even get in.
Okay, first up, let's set the stage. Everyone's talking about Malaysia for a reason, but you've got to know what you're up against.
This is the big question for so many companies right now, isn't it? I mean, Malaysia is this incredible gateway to the whole ASEAN region. You've got a growing middle class, a strong economy, it's a huge opportunity. But you can't just dive in head first without a solid plan. That's a recipe for some very expensive lessons.
Because, let's be real, it's not as simple as just renting an office and putting up a sign. You're walking into a whole web of local regulations that can be, well, complex. The initial costs can be steep, and in a lot of key industries, there are really strict rules about foreign ownership. Plus, how do you figure out what local customers actually want, or crack into distribution networks that have been in place for decades?
So, faced with all that, many of the smartest companies decide not to go it alone. The answer is to team up, to form a strategic alliance with someone who already knows the lay of the land. And that, right there, is where the joint venture comes in.
So let's get down to it. What is this thing really? It's not just a handshake deal. It's a very specific vehicle you build for success.
You know, at its heart, a joint venture is all about focus. It's when two or more companies look at each other and say, hey, you've got the tech, I've got the market access. Let's pool our resources to achieve this one specific thing. The key word there is specific. It's not a marriage, it's a mission.
And it is so important to understand how a JV is different from other arrangements. It's not a general partnership that just goes on forever, and it's definitely not a merger where your company disappears. Your company stays independent. But the most critical difference, liability. In a JV, everything is defined in the agreement. You're protected from the kind of open-ended risk you might find in other partnerships.
Okay, so you're seeing the power of a JV. Great. Now you hit your first big strategic choice. How are you going to structure this thing legally? This is a major fork in the road. On one side, you have the incorporated JV. This is where you actually create a brand new, separate company, what we call a special purpose vehicle, or SPV. This new company acts like a legal shield, protecting the parent companies because your liability is limited to what you invested. This is perfect for long-term projects. The other path is the unincorporated JV. No new company, it's all based on a contract between the partners. This is way more flexible and often the go-to for shorter, specific projects like a one-off construction job. No matter which path you take, you need a map, a detailed, ironclad map. And in the world of JVs, that map is your agreement. A weak agreement, I'm telling you, is just asking for trouble down the line.
A really solid agreement is always built on these 5 pillars. You have to be crystal clear on your scope and goals. Document every contribution. And I don't just mean cash. I mean intellectual property, assets, people's time. Then, define who gets to make what decisions. Spell out exactly how you'll split the profits and the risks. And maybe most importantly, plan for what happens when you disagree. A dispute resolution process isn't a nice to have, it's absolutely essential.
Okay, you've got your internal blueprint ready. Now, it's time to see how that plan fits with the local rules of the road in Malaysia.
If you remember one number from this whole explainer, make it this one, 50%. In a lot of important sectors in Malaysia, we're talking logistics, education, oil and gas, local Malaysian partners have to own at least half the company. This is why JVs aren't just a good idea here. A lot of the time, they're the only way to play. You need that local partner.
And that ownership split? Oh yeah, it hits your bottom line directly. Check out how the corporate tax rate changes. If your JV is majority owned by your Malaysian partner, you can get a lower progressive tax rate. But once foreign ownership gets too high, boom, you're looking at a higher flat rate. It's a pretty powerful reason to think carefully about how you structure that partnership.
And it's not just about ownership percentages. There are ground rules for who's running the show. You have to have at least one director who actually lives in Malaysia. That ensures there's local accountability. You also need a licensed company secretary based in the country. These aren't just suggestions. They are hard and fast legal requirements you've got to meet.
All right, we've come to our final section. And it might just be the one that people overlook the most, but it is so critical. It's all about planning your exit. A good plan isn't just about how to start the journey, it's about knowing how it's going to end. To really get a sense of the stakes here, let's look at a huge real-world JV. Sony and Honda teaming up to build that new electric car, the Afeela. This is a classic JV. You've got Honda's legendary manufacturing muscle combined with Sony's software and tech genius. They're going for a goal that neither of them could probably reach on their own.
Now, get a load of this number. That is a projected operating loss of over 50 billion yen before they even sell one car. That just shows you the insane level of commitment and patience that these big, ambitious JVs require. When you're playing with that kind of money, you better believe your agreement, including how to split up, needs to be perfect. And you know, a quote like this captures the grand vision perfectly. It's inspiring. But what happens if that long-term vision starts to get blurry? What if the partners just can't agree on what redefining mobility looks like anymore? That's exactly why even the biggest JVs need an escape hatch built in from day one.
So to make sure you don't get trapped in a partnership that's gone south, your agreement needs clear exit clauses like these. You can set up options to buy your partner's shares, or for them to buy yours, at a price you've already agreed on. You can even include something called a Russian roulette clause. It sounds dramatic, I know, but it's a killer way to break a deadlock. One partner names a price, and the other has to choose, either buy me out or sell to me at that exact price.
So, at the end of the day, a joint venture is an incredibly powerful and flexible way to get into the Malaysian market. It lets you share the risk, get that crucial local insight, and work through all the complex rules. But as you get ready for this journey, just remember that its success or failure is going to come down to one single, all-important decision: who you choose to be your partner.